to another chat called Being in the Middle. And today I am incredibly stoked because, as you all know, many of these chats are also a gift because I get to connect with people I've known throughout my career, especially people like Camille, who I've seen the trajectory of her business flourish, which is called Talentfoot Executive Search. So welcome, founder and CEO and a friend of the industry, Camille Fetter. Hi, Camille.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Blagica. It's been way too long.
I know.
I can't believe we met probably 15 years ago.
I know. And another great connection for those of you who ever think about doing a professional organization. Seema and I volunteered our time and connected through the Chicago Interactive Marketing Association, which was such a gem on many levels. So Camille and I talked a bit before our chat about what we're going to talk about, and we're going to be pretty real. All of the chats that I've had thus far, you all know, whether you listen now or later when it goes up in video format, I like to provide real advice to people about what they're going through, career, and what it means for Gen X. Camille and her team are wizards when it comes to Camille helping connect Fortune 50 companies with talent, and especially in the digital tech space. So before I go into my questions, I'd love for you to provide that feedback and background about what you do for a living, how you got there, and the kind of journey of Talentfoot from that perspective. Then we'll get into the nitty gritty of questions. If you have questions too, we're watching, so please ping away on LinkedIn. So Camille, take it away.
Great. So as Blagica had shared, I am the founder of Talentfoot Executive Search. I'm also now the CEO of the firm. Not all founders decide to be CEOs. And, I founded the firm 14 years ago with the goal of really building a business that cared about the job seeker, right? And so I'm all about helping people find fulfillment in their life. And we do tend to depend on our work to drive a lot of that fulfillment today. So, the alarming rates of professionals just not being fulfilled at work pains me. And we are on the path to change that. So we recruit for startups to Fortune 50, as Blagica had shared. We specialize in marketing, sales, technology, accounting, finance, and operations. Most of our roles are director level and above, but we do have associates that will recruit at the manager level too. We are an organization that believes the recruiting world is no different than a matchmaker. So we call ourselves corporate matchmakers, and it's really art and science. And we're very passionate about helping job seekers find their path. And hopefully that's some helpful color for the audience.
That is fantastic. And I know that many folks who knew this was happening were interested to watch because many people are seeking. So let's get to it. I actually want to get to the thing. And you've talked about it as well with your experience in recruitment and doing that matchmaking. Let's talk about the macro right now. And I'm so thankful that whether it's the journal or other publications, we're talking about the ghosting and the black hole that is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Let's nip that in the bud. I know that you're a recruiter and you specialize in specializations and that touch point to folks, which is key. But for folks who may not be using a recruiter and look at LinkedIn applying, what is your POV on it and what is happening right now within that platform for job seekers?
Absolutely. So I know our goal is to be very blunt because sugarcoating anything and this topic and our conversation is not going to help anyone, right? So I will say we fill 1% of our jobs by way of job postings. Unfortunately, job postings aren't the avenue that recruiters really depend on unless it's for freelance or contract work, right? Our job postings are really more of a marketing channel for us. And I will say, among our clients and our own recruiters, unfortunately, with the market conditions the way they are, there are a lot of job seekers. And so there are a lot of hiring managers, corporate recruiters, and recruiters on the firm side who are actually choosing not to post jobs because it's creating a lot more work for them to sift through the applications. So with that said, I would not assume an organization is hiring or not hiring based on job postings. And I would not depend on searching the job boards purely for the success of your job search?
Well, that's a big one that I want to unpack. And it's a big one, and I'll say kinda, because you've seen rumblings of this in terms of folks who you've read and others who are watching this. I've seen some pretty detailed, soul-crushing posts of people and their experiences going through that process of the cover letter within. I know you write a great post about cover letters I want to talk about as well. So are companies, I'll ask the question people ask me, so I have to ask, but you asked me to ask, so I will.
Sure.
Are companies posting the jobs on LinkedIn because there's some HR checking of the box that has to occur regarding postings being public or available? A company might have someone in mind for that role internally, yet are they still required to post it for legal reasons, but yet already had someone to fill the role? Is that a thing?
It's actually more of a corporate policy than
Mm-hmm.
anything that would be compliance, right? So organizations, mostly I'd say enterprise, they do have a policy where they have to post the job both within internally within the organization and externally. Sometimes it's just they have to post it within the company's website and for internal candidates. But there's no rule that you have to post a job externally from any kind of compliance standpoint.
Okay. So for those folks, in all transparency, some people might only have time to look at LinkedIn for gigs, or, we're in a mobile world. So you take your phone and you get that trigger, you get that proactive, you might be a good fit for this role, and it gets somebody excited. It gets their adrenaline pumping, like, oh my gosh, this could be it. Do you think that the job seeker could still reference LinkedIn knowing that something is open? Well, you just said that they may not be the case. Like, is it worth the risk for Jane Doe to see that something is open at, I'm making this up, Nordstrom? They love Nordstrom. They want to be a buyer for Nordstrom. If they see that on LinkedIn as a possibility, is it worth their time? Maybe not vis-a-vis LinkedIn, but is it worth their time to package materials and send it to someone else within that company? Do you think
Absolutely.
that's worth it?
Absolutely. And they should absolutely be taking those steps. So I believe the statistic is it's over 70% of jobs are secured by way of knowing someone. And so really, studying the organization. So one of the tips I give job seekers is to download their LinkedIn connections. It takes, I think, 24 hours where LinkedIn will actually send you an Excel spreadsheet of all of your connections. And you'll be surprised of how many people you know at various organizations you're looking to break into. So being able to certainly apply for the posting, apply for the job, but try to find other avenues within the organization by way of people you may know, or asking for introductions to someone within the organization who you believe is a stakeholder for that position, and try to make a personal connection.
I love that, because it does take a little bit of digital ninjery to get it done. But to your point, that's a huge tip, guys. The ability to, and gals, to download all your contacts. And it actually would be an interesting exercise to see. Oh, I had no idea. Even when I see people going from one place to the other, it's interesting to see someone's career path. So that's cool. What are your thoughts on, should everyone find the way that you match companies with talent? Should everyone, in essence, find a recruiter?
Great question.
Work with a recruiter.
So we are working every day on behalf of the organizations that are looking to fill the positions, right? So they are the ones compensating us for our time, right? So most of when we're working for, right, for an individual, it's typically for the hiring manager, right? There, 20 years ago, there used to be recruiters who actually worked for the candidate, where they would then go confidentially market the candidate to organizations. That model doesn't really exist these days. There's certainly certain recruiters that if they're in a niche and they have a really great candidate, they may collaborate with that individual to market them confidentially, but that's not a typical arrangement or relationship that a candidate has with a recruiter. Most recruiters on the firm side, right, they're headhunters. They're going after people who are not looking, and typically are hired to find a needle in a haystack. So, what may appear as to be a role that many people are qualified for. Typically, we have hiring managers who have a very tall ask. They want someone that has a track record of accomplishing ABC, and that may not necessarily be in the job description. So hopefully that's helpful color.
Yeah, that is actually because it really wiggles down whether or not it's what it sounds like to me. The takeaway there is, and I'm thinking about a lot of creative people I know or folks from the traditional digital marketing tech, ad tech spaces who are looking for work right now. It may not be the best fit for them to find a recruiter per se, because to your point, the recruiters are working on behalf of the firm, the company that's compensating them. But it seems as if their time is best spent to do that mining, to go through their contacts, to see who they know for that position or that company of interest.
Yeah, great question. I would say absolutely you should have 1 to 2 recruiters in your back pocket at all times who
Okay,
work within your niche and your functional expertise in your industry, but don't rely on them. Don't solely
got
rely
it.
on them, right? So you should have your resume in their database. You should receive their newsletters of their openings. You should follow them on LinkedIn, build a relationship,
Mhm.
but I would not rely solely on the recruiter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the other kind of elephant in the room as we talk about Gen X and topics is there's been a lot of changes. I've been very vocal. I'm actually a fan of AI. I think AI and LLMs are really interesting, and I think efficiencies can be found. And I think that is an opportunity for someone to add a skill set to their toolkit. But you know better than me that there's been a lot of change with jobs and roles. From my perspective, I was very annoyed during the pandemic when a lot of the tech firms overhired. Really
Yeah.
annoyed. I remember
You knew
sitting
it.
with my husband. Oh my goodness gracious, Camille. Sat there with my husband and I thought, have we not seen this before? I get that everybody was at home. It was a treacherous time. E-com numbers were through the roof. But then to think about the livelihoods that were hired and hoping to grow with these companies, and then that big layoffs happened.
Yeah.
And I do think that many of those companies with their P&Ls and cash on deck could have afforded to keep those folks in house,
Yeah.
potentially do something else. Am I saying that's efficient? Not really, but could it have been? So that upset me quite a bit as a practitioner and someone watching this space for a while. It is what it is. So that happened. But
Yeah.
then recently we're seeing more changes when it comes to folks on the agency side, the creative side, the ad tech side. Thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on someone who's been at a career for a few decades in marketing, in PR, and suddenly that going away, being potentially replaced by technology tools like AI, or in many cases, from what I've been hearing from people that have been, and thank you for those who confided your stories in me, younger staff. And I don't want to have this be like an ageism debate or whatnot, but I really think it's important to talk about things that people are sharing with me and to get your perspective as a practitioner in the industry. I know it's a lot that I just listed, but
Sure.
what are your thoughts on any of the above when it comes to changes, age, talent, technology?
So I will say you never want to stop learning, right? And
Mm-hmm.
don't depend on the organization to provide that education to you, your organization today, right?
100%.
So we're living in a day and age of obviously the information age at a whole new level, right? We have access to YouTube. We have professionals that are learning entirely new skill sets, AI skills by way of YouTube, right? You no
Mm-hmm.
longer have to go to university or sit in these orientations or these formal L&D trainings within your organization to learn a new skill. So it's really important to constantly be future proofing yourself by trying to learn a new skill that you know is in demand every single day, whether it's 30 minutes a night, reading a relevant book for a skill that you know you need to hone. Today, every leader in business, regardless of your functional area, is a technologist. So
Mm-hmm.
when we were hiring a head of finance, a head of operations, a head of sales, right? Not just marketing, not just tech. These are leaders that we're now expecting to be technologists. So how are you using AI to drive efficiency? How are you using technology as a whole, right, to improve the process, procedures, the ability to deliver great work, right, with on behalf of your function? So the leaders who are finding themselves at risk are those that are not becoming those innovative, forward-thinking leaders who are finding ways to drive top and bottom line results by way of, being financially savvy, being technically savvy, and certainly, just being able to find ways to make an impact. So if you find yourself in a role where you're just not sure if you're making an impact, raise your hand and say, look, I don't feel like my role today is very measurable. I want to be able to drive measurable results on behalf of the team, the function, the business. What can I do? How is my success being measured? And ensure that you have open lines of communication with your boss around ensuring that you are set up for success, which really does require you to make an impact on the business.
That's really interesting because I've got follow-up questions regarding which types of technologies, but I want to read a comment from Shauna Berger, who wrote, "You need to stay up to date on trends to be relevant and in cutting edge in the industry. I specialize in recruiting, marketing, public relations, and I'm not seeing AI replace jobs necessarily, but there is a significant advantage to those who are learning this new technology and utilizing it." I would agree with that in terms of the how. So, Camille, let's talk about those technologies because the word technologist to me is really intriguing because there's so many different cohorts to me of what technologists can mean. So when you say technologist, do you mean, for example, someone being an amazing AI prompter and, prompt engineering? Do you mean someone who is wicked great at Asana? Someone who uses motion.io to update calendars? Talk to me about some of the technology things, projects, tools that you see would be considered a technologist, because that word, and I know you know this because you talk to folks, that word I think freaks a lot of people out. I
Yeah.
think they think Python. I
Yeah.
need to be a
No.
coder. So let's break down that technologist term for those watching now and later, make them understand what that could mean for their job search. This is really interesting.
Great question. So I would say first and foremost, it starts with curiosity. Stay curious, right? So technologists within all these various functional areas of business today, they're individuals who start to see, wow, that's a pretty repetitive task. How can we potentially drive efficiency, right?
Mm-hmm.
To really remove the repetitive nature of responsibility or remit within the team, right? So they're always thinking through, what are ways that we could either drive efficiency, prevent errors in
Mm-hmm.
quality assurance, right, with the use of technology? How can we essentially increase productivity? If you're in marketing, how do you potentially use AI to produce more content, right, and drive more productivity? So we're not seeing, to Shauna's point, we're not seeing professionals being replaced by AI. We're seeing professionals who are not using AI to drive efficiencies and drive innovation. They are the ones that we're getting calls about saying, you know what, I think we need a more forward-thinking leader and someone that is going to be able to take this function team to the next level, that's thinking about how we can use technology to drive efficiency and drive productivity.
I love that. So that makes sense. Thank you. That
Yep.
provides insight into the how. The other thing you said that I'm accustomed to just having come up within the startup space in Chicago is measurement. And I think that what you said is honest and real. But I bet your bottom dollar that a lot of people watching this now or later too afraid to ask the question, how do I make an impact and how do you measure me in making an impact? That sounds really crass of me and I apologize, but I do wonder if there is, unfortunately, there's always been, since the beginning of time, I'm sure since the days of Marshall Fields and Woolworths, there's always been people who coast at work. Just coast, get, just under the radar. But I feel in today's marketplace, that isn't accepted as much anymore. And it's not as easy to coast and not be measured, to your point. And I wonder if folks are afraid to have that measurability on their back as part of their job function. Have you seen that shift over the years in terms of that expectation or honesty about themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are Gen Zers in particular, they want to know exactly how their success is being measured. They want to know what the definition of success looks like. They want to
Interesting.
climb the corporate ladder. They're striving for those promotions. They're So I would say are focused on measuring results for every single role within their team or function, right? So oftentimes
Hmm.
it's a matter of managing up and saying, what is my position scorecard? How is my position being scored? How is my work being scored? What do I have to do to achieve my full bonus, right? And ensuring that everyone is on the same page and aligned with what that scorecard looks like. And that's actually quite common at the C-suite level. We have position scorecards
Yep.
before we even go to offer, right? So we'll say, hey, here's the position scorecard. Here's everything you need to do in a very measurement oriented format for you to achieve your full bonus. You still want the job, right? This can be applied at all levels within an organization.
And do you think you mentioned Gen Z liking to know, ahead of time what they're getting into? I would agree with that. Just my experience working with Gen Zers over the years, it's almost refreshing of, tell me what's expected of me. Do you think that Gen Xers perhaps could be missing out on opportunities because they don't approach it that way? Or do you see a younger cohort taking positions that a Gen Xer might typically have gone because of a perception of, the delta of age, or the perception that experience may not be there from an understanding of anything as basic as how to use TikTok? That's a really small example.
Mhm.
But do you think that Gen Xers, a better way for me to ask that, I guess, is do you think that Gen Xers aren't as good as beating their chests with skill sets and experience as Gen Zers or other cohorts do?
That's a great question. No, I don't, I haven't seen a big trend in terms of the generations, one being better at this than the other. I think, I mean, I just interviewed a president yesterday of $100 million business, right? Incredible track record of success, and was too humble. I said, look, you're being way too humble. You doubled the size of this business. You had a successful exit. And so I think a lot of people within all of our generations in the workforce today struggle with how they actually position and package themselves.
Interesting. I would agree with that, actually, based on just chats with folks and helping them just navigate what they want to do next.
Yeah.
Do you think that this is an interesting time, given we talked about technology, given we talked about how many things you could do yourself? You mentioned, there was no playbook. I mean, early in the days, we didn't have free certifications in Google Analytics, free certifications in Facebook ads, with so many tools that someone can use that runs 6 functions. What do you think about the idea of starting a business? What do you think about the idea of all the people with all of that IP and that hands-on experience to perhaps visit the idea of starting something from scratch? Are you hearing anything there from your peers, people you network with, who might be shifting from corporate and deciding to take something on and try something out for themselves?
Yeah, I'd say it's a mixed bag right now. I think there's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs who are afraid to venture off and take that leap of faith because, the economy has felt a bit uncertain over the last year.
Right.
And then, there's others who had said, look, I was laid off, after the tech industry overhiring. This is my opportunity. I'm gonna seize the moment while I'm between positions and see if I can make something more entrepreneurial work. So obviously it depends on people's thresholds for risk. Individuals that are in a position of maybe they have a dual income, right? It certainly makes it easier
Mm-hmm.
for them to take that risk, where others, may not be in that position. So, I think we're starting to see private equity come back. So they're starting to really work towards exiting some of their portfolio and taking on new investments. Venture capital seems to be slowly creeping back. So I do think that there's an opportunity to raise capital and look at fundraising again in the back half of the year. It's just hasn't certainly been at the same levels it has historically been over the last few years
Okay.
in terms of the easeability of raising capital.
And Stephanie Rotone wrote something that I'm trying to just, maybe Stephanie, you write the next comment you wrote, which I found, and it's so frustrating not knowing what the next steps are and how you are doing at your job. So if you can expand, if you mean measurement, if you mean you need to know, beyond measurement after you get that scorecard, let us know in the comments so we can make sure we answer that. Camille,
I
something
can
else.
touch on that
Oh,
too, real quick.
please.
again, that's part of it's learning how to manage up. And so don't depend on your leader to be a great leader, right? So ask for feedback, right? If they're not proactively giving you feedback, ask for feedback, ask for a feedback session, ask for, hey, could we meet quarterly just about my performance, what I could do better, what I could improve upon? You know, a lot of leaders are afraid to give feedback and they're not great at giving feedback. So communicating to them that you're craving and wanting feedback makes it easier for them to provide that. And that feedback is the gift. Feedback is the gift to getting better and improving our skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I would just, take a proactive nature to have those feedback sessions.
And Stephanie just wrote measurement. So Stephanie, I hope with Camille's response was what you needed in terms of understanding the next steps after you getting that scorecard and asking for feedback. Camille, something else I noticed the last few years, I get a kick out of titles. I get such a kick out of titles. And I have to ask you because, again, coming up within the space of digital marketing, everything to me was about revenue. Everything was about growth.
Mm-hmm.
How and when did we start getting these titles for performance marketing, growth marketing? Because that was always the goal. It was always use all these different channels together to make money for the company, great ROI, customer acquisition, also known as CAC. Do the titles mean something different than what we know as, marketing and digital marketing? What's the difference?
So hiring managers have become obsessed with titles to attract what they believe is the right skill set for the position, right? So
Okay.
if it's, for example, we were just conducting an intake with a client the other day, and the role is marketing, right? But 80% of the job is paid media.
Yeah.
Right. And so we said, look, we're advising you to use a director of performance marketing title because this is a performance marketing job. And we need to make sure that we are all on the same page internally, that this is the performance marketing leader focused on paid media, as well as externally to vendors, right? As well as to attract the right caliber and skill set for that role. So titles do help attract the right talent, drive alignment within an organization of who they're looking for, as well as for proper internal and external communication.
Okay. And because a bunch of folks emailed me so many questions before today. That's why I'll keep you so busy.
Great question.
Another question I received was around fractional work and your thoughts on fractional work, your thoughts on project-based work. Should people pursue that? Is there a market for it? Should folks position their LinkedIn in such a way where fractional is an option or an avenue for them, for the person looking?
The gig economy is not going anywhere. It's only increasing. So absolutely. I would say if you're in between positions, absolutely raise your hand for project fractional work. Oftentimes these roles convert into a full-time position. I think almost half of our fractional placements have turned into a full-time role. And these were individuals that thought they were going to stay on a fractional path, but they all just really enjoyed working together and they didn't want to say goodbye. So I would absolutely say go for it if you're in between positions. My one disclaimer or warning would be, one complaint we get from a lot of fractionals is it's difficult to do the work and continue the business development pipeline of always finding the next fractional gig. So
right. That's unless it's I do know a few folks who do a lot of fractional work, but it actually works out swimmingly because they essentially do fractional, i.e. consulting work for the places where they were. So it was more efficient for those companies to not have them on full time. And they just pull them in. So they have to say no to work because it's just easier to take it on that way. Another question I had, ad tech, talking about ad tech and what have you. The question I had was, is programmatic still a big function of paid media from what you're seeing with the ask and the job recs you're seeing from employers, from companies? Programmatic advertising, is that still something that is happening and is a skill set people should have?
Yes, it's still happening, agency side and the brand side. I will say a lot more people have experience with programmatic now. So we may not see it as in our face as it was a couple years ago. It's almost expected that you have knowledge of programmatic if you're in the field of media, or at least you've been exposed to it and have a decent understanding. So yes, still continues to be a hot skill set to have.
Okay. Other questions. So, well, I'll aggregate it. It was about middle, they call it middle talent, but the question is not director level,
Mm-hmm.
not junior level. There is this feeling that if somebody repositions themselves as a doer and like a jack of all trades, what are your thoughts on that type of positioning, regardless of industry, because of what we're seeing with tools and technologists? Is there like a hunger with the employers, knowing that somebody will come in and, to use the phrase, get her done, if you will, and not really wanting, this is a tricky one,
Mm-hmm.
not wanting the fanfare of being a leader? Is that a detriment?
No.
So a couple, okay.
Yeah. So the smaller the business, the more attractive the generalist is, right?
Okay.
Uh, the larger the business, unless it's a very senior level role, the less appeal a generalist is. So larger organizations tend to have more specialists, smaller organizations tend to have more generalists, right? So it's important to know your audience and their needs, and then really working on what your packaging and positioning is to communicate how you can fulfill that void for that organization and its need.
Okay.
And then every organization needs individual contributors, right? So there isn't room for everybody to be in a leadership position within an organization, right? So if you're a seasoned, experienced veteran in your field, there is no shame in being an experienced individual contributor. Every organization needs that.
And when I got that question, I thought that was interesting because that, I wouldn't call it an elephant in the room, but I sense a person of a certain age secretly liking that function and position, but there might be an industry or company expectation or peer network expectation that that person is climbing in the ranks of leadership in an organization or industry. But for that person to just get in and get it done, not make a paycheck, but make a paycheck, but be a contributor and be happy and content with that role. I'm finding that that is it's a quiet type of reality where people don't want to admit to, because there's this expectation of, I'm going to be a manager and then a director and then a VP and then and I always say, what is so wrong? What is so wrong with being amazing at the thing that you do, killing it, helping the company, maybe leading one or two people or not, but doing well, having that security, but knowing that you're an integral part of the organization?
I could not agree more. So being really good at your craft, right, has tremendous value for any organization, right? So I think those who really admire professionals who say, look, I don't want to deal with the HR headaches. I don't want to deal with, I just love doing the work, right? I love the craft. I love the game, right? And I want to continue to get better at my craft, right? I think that fulfillment looks different for everybody, right? And a leadership role isn't necessarily what is fulfilling for everybody, right? A lot of people
Yeah.
truly do just get most of their fulfillment through the craft. And there is nothing wrong with that. Knowing what provides you fulfillment is really the key, right? In life.
And that's good to hear, because folks that have asked the question, one in particular, had said, to try to find their words, I feel like a loser if I don't want to push for a promotion. And I'm thinking, you're getting paid well.
Yeah.
It's why not? So yes, thanks for confirming that. I think it's an interesting state that we're in, where folks are trying to find work on one end, but then folks who are in positions and happy and secure and doing well think something might be wrong, where they're not asking for more in terms of that trajectory. And something related to asking that I wanted to bring up to you is the idea of vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sensing that folks aren't taking their vacation days. Are you seeing that as a practitioner? Are we still in this hilarity of the meme, the global meme and joke that, Americans don't take their vacation? Has that hesitation at the job gone away, where people at least can say, I've contributed, I need a break, I'm taking 2 weeks off to go to Italy, I deserved it? What are your thoughts on that trend from yesteryear?
I mean, what we're seeing among the workforce is that since the pandemic, which was really our life's halftime, right? Everybody was pausing and deciding
Mm-hmm.
how they wanted to play the rest of the game, right? There's been a newfound interest in work-life balance and wanting to be present at home, right? For those that have responsibilities at home. So I do think that we're not seeing a lack of the workforce taking the time off that they need. I think that was absolutely more of a problem pre-pandemic.
Great.
So that was definitely a benefit of what the pandemic brought to all of us. I think was perspective on having more
Yeah.
balance in our lives.
So let's talk more about that balance. Let's talk about, you mentioned responsibilities at home. And I've been vocal about this, just my experiences having two kids and just seeing the differences of workforce balance here and other parts of the world. Are you seeing companies adjusting or adding things or adding benefits to make it easier, especially in working moms? Not saying that dads don't have it, perfect, but we would argue that most of the brunt of the career issues that might happen would be working mothers. How in many women leaving the workforce because they don't find that balance and they're looking for other things because their corporation may not be adhering or helping out in that way. I also understand, Camille, that most companies they have to please their shareholders and their stock prices, and there's quarterly earnings, and there's the reality of business. I get that too.
Okay.
Anything change? Do you see any trends happening to get more women? I know there's the Mom Project that's helping mothers get back within the space. What is your experience and what you've seen with employers?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, since the pandemic, there's obviously a whole new level of embracement of remote work. And that is wildly beneficial to working moms and working parents, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now, we have a lot of executives who are having breakfast with their kids every morning before school, and they're taking their kids, to school every day, right? Where they are contacting us when an organization has rolls out a mandate of back to office 3, 4, or 5 days a week, right? And their response is, no, I love the lifestyle I've built. I said goodbye to my nanny, right? And I'm taking my kid to school every day. And I'm not willing to give that up. So then they contact us as they're launching, obviously, a job search. So I do think there continues to be a lot of organizations that are embracing fully remote. But of course, there is a trend of hybrid.
Yeah.
And that's either Tuesday, Thursday, typically, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday in the office. We, about a year ago, most of our roles, 70% of our roles were remote. Where now 70% of our roles are requiring some level of physical presence. So I think a lot of organizations are missing that collaboration that takes place in person and are now expecting to find talent that can commute into an office. So for a lot of working parents, that's been a struggle. And many, but then, on the flip side, there are plenty of working parents and professionals who really are actually asking to go into an office multiple days a week so they can focus their work differently on different days of the week as well. Right. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, but
No, it does, because I mean it's odd because I've worked remote for a while, but I do like the hybrid approach.
yeah.
And for me, hybrid might be if I'm co-working someplace or if I'm meeting a client for, lunch and having a working session. I do appreciate that in-person collaboration. Even if I have clients who are local, I won't do a phone call. I at least want to see them and have that type of interaction, but obviously prefer in person. But I think that's smart. And I do, to your point about the changes, I know that I think Walmart just announced that they require everyone to be closer to headquarters, and they're not the remote piece is done. I just saw someone I know who just posted that they're looking for work because the mandate changed and you have to have some type of in-person experience. And I know that's touchy for people, but I also know that from a real estate perspective and commercial real estate perspective, that there's also other types of things that might be at play in that you have these commercial buildings that are going to be, underutilized. So hopefully that hybrid approach does work for most companies. You're also a mom, and you may not know that Camille is a mother, but she is. How old is your daughter now?
She's 9. She'll be 10 next month. Actually, this month, two
I
weeks.
just Sorry, I just remember when Camille was pregnant. So that's a lot of people that I know. It's like before children, after children.
Where does
So
the time
how do
go?
you? It did go fast, but I am one of those people being so thankful for the good part of social media of keeping up with my
Mm.
friends and my contacts having moved so much. So I'm thankful for it. And at least I can live vicariously through that. What is it like to run a business and to be a mom with where the company started and where it is now? How do you see that balancing out for you? And for women who may not be as risk averse, back to your earlier comment, that are looking to start something, what advice would you have for them as?
Yeah, it's a great question. So it's not easy. I'm sure that there are plenty of parents out there that are right there with me, that it's not easy. I try to find the harmony in the bigger picture. So there are days
Yeah,
where there's just, I try to strive for years for balance, right? Of trying to do, be the best mom I could be and the best leader I could be all at the same time, right? All at once. And there's days where not the business, requires me to be on the road or have a 16-hour day, and I can't be as present at home. And then there's obviously times where I'm very intentional. Hey, it's graduation day. Hey, there's a musical at school. I don't miss anything when she has something at school, right? I am there. I block my calendar. As soon as the business day wraps up, I am 100% present with Penelope. I put my phone away, and I'm not back online until she goes to bed, right? So I know that I just try to be very intentional about being present with
yeah,
her when I'm with her, as well as weekends, right? So I probably exhaust myself because I'm constantly living a pretty busy schedule on weekends, focused around creating memories together and
yeah.
experiences together, that I know will only continue to allow us to build upon our relationship. So the time that we do have, I try to make it really meaningful.
I think that's important. And I like that piece about intention because, Michael and I, we work for ourselves, and I often forget, my phone will be out, it'll be 5:30, and I might get an email, and it might be timely based on just some communication work that I'm doing for somebody. And if I pick up the phone and I look at it, I actually will, if it's important, I'll say to one of the kids, hey, just so you know, this thing happened and I have to address it because, but I'll be back with you in 20 minutes or 15 minutes. But I don't like doing that often. And that's why I think that piece of advice is so key with the memories that they have will be there. We don't do phones at the dinner table.
I'll see
At
there.
certain times of the night, we put phones up on a counter. I know that I get a lot of crap for this within certain spaces, but now not so much. Thank you, Jonathan Haidt, and your book on the anxious generation. My kids do have phones, but they're not allowed to have social media. My daughter's 14, and she's actually at a point where she understands why she doesn't want to have it.
Yeah.
But I've been public about this. I mean, she's on Pinterest and she follows her friend Taylor Swift, what she does on Pinterest.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It's tough, especially with our backgrounds, seeing everything come up and how it began
Hmm.
and how you can use those tools today. It's exciting, but at the same time, it
Right.
could be a lot. So I think for parents watching, especially if you have a little girl, it is really important because they remember those things. I even forget sitting with my kids. Camille will just come up with the most, like my son, remember that time I picked up a snake in Arizona? But it'll be the most left field memory. What? Yeah, yeah, you did. You picked up how did you? It's like, yeah, I picked it up and it was dead. And then he'll go back to eating his dinner. It's just so odd that way. And given this is, being in the middle and talking about Gen X, we talked about work, we talked about, kids. And have you noticed, just as a woman, just as you've gotten older and when you started the company and where you are today, 2024, as life changes, of course, we're not Nostradamus to know what it would have been like when we were 24, 25. But if you take a break today and you have a cup of coffee and you're sitting talking to your imaginary 25-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Great question. I would tell her to never stop learning. I would tell her hey, life isn't always easy. Never stop being resilient. You will always bounce back. When you fall down, you get back up. And I would tell her to make the most of it. Just make the most of every day. I think there are days that go by where sometimes we forget about the meaning of our life, right? And so I try to start with a meditation every morning and try to get present with myself and the world. And I think at 25 years old, I never paused to be really intentional about being mindful, being present, right? And
Yeah.
there are times where I'm like, what did I do those 5 years, right? I'm like, I barely remember because I don't think I was actually very present. So I would certainly tell her to be more present.
That's an interesting statement you just said. If I look back at 5 years, there's certain parts I may not remember because I may not have been there.
Blur.
I can completely relate to that. There's pockets, I always say to folks, I am so thankful that I was in my 20s in Chicago at that period of time. It was, I don't know, say that I'm wrong. People can, tell me I'm wrong, but something about circa late 90s, early 2000s in Chicago in your 20s was magical.
It was amazing.
I don't know. Just the restaurants that were opening. Oh my God. Just the restaurants that opened. I mean, I remember I took the bus and the CTA everywhere. It was just magic. And I tried because my daughter, Northwestern, that's the only place she wants to go is Northwestern. So, and I say to her, gosh, if you lived my life when I was 25, 26, but what you just said, I have little blinks of those memories, like brunches on Sundays, going to that bookstore on Michigan Avenue before it closed down, but not full moments of where I was, what I was doing.
We were
versus
hustling,
now.
Right? We were grinding, hustling. It was a fast-paced lifestyle, right? And yeah, we just didn't take the time to really pause, probably like we now are in our 40s.
Because I was half sleeping under my desk at Orbitz when we launched and just trying to figure out how to ad server broke.
That's right.
Yeah. So as we wrap things up and whatnot, I also wanted to see how much, of course you can't share because it's, it's private information, but how many job recs at a given time is Talentfoot helping source?
Yeah. So we've averaged about 80 at any given time. And that's manager level to the C-suite.
That's a lot of
phone calls.
And to go back to the beginning of our chat in terms of tips, let's get to some brass tacks tips. So you're sourcing positions and you're looking people up. Let's go there. How deep do you go in looking at someone's online presence? How deep does your team go looking at someone's Insta or TikTok?
Yeah.
Because I think folks need to hear it.
Yeah, we look at everything. So we are Googling your name and we want to see footage and film of your speaking engagements, right? And sometimes we'll even include that in the professional overview that we submit to the hiring team, right? But we are certainly, we're not searching with skepticism as much as we're just curious about, okay, what kind of thought leader are you? But in that process, sometimes we will uncover content that maybe isn't as favorable for a job seeker, right? So yes, these are channels that we should be very mindful of and ensure that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Do you think everybody should have a personal website?
Great question.
In addition to LinkedIn?
I think as long as it is going to help your personal brand, absolutely.
Okay. Got it.
There's no harm, right? I think the challenge is sometimes we have executives who have a pretty broad aperture in terms of their skill set and what they've accomplished. And so sometimes it does require tailoring your story and your experience as it relates to that employer. And so a website obviously is more static and not as dynamic. So that's where I pause, right? As long as you're depending on the individual and your story, as long as that consistent narrative is applicable for every role and organization you are applying and pursuing, then it's a yes.
Got it. Because my first thought was, portfolio sites with folks will
Creative,
say like,
absolutely.
yeah, folks will say there's no space on LinkedIn to give my full color. So I'll say, to your point, have you spoken? Is it easy to find all the places where you spoke? Is it all the white papers you've written, or just all the things that you think are relevant that are not showing up on your LinkedIn? And then speaking of LinkedIn, do you, to your earlier point, you don't use LinkedIn, you don't put roles on LinkedIn or use LinkedIn to fill roles. Got it. But what are your thoughts on the other component we're hearing about with one of your favorite words, I'm sure, bots?
Yep, sure.
Um, talk to me about that, about AI bots, how things are scanned. Is that a thing? Should people worry, or should it go back to your kind of basic 101 advice of get right to the source?
Yeah. So we do post jobs on LinkedIn. We just
But
don't
yes,
depend on them, right?
right.
So I will say right now, most recruiters, hiring managers are still leveraging keyword search to find talent. So really focusing on ensuring that you have the right keywords in your profile, in your title, and ensuring once they get to your LinkedIn page that you have highlighted your success, your accomplishments, the biggest impact that you've made for organizations, the organizations you have served. That's the most important thing. So, right now, I mean, we certainly are seeing there was a point in time where I would receive 40 emails within the course of the same minute via email with a detailed cover letter and resume. And I knew it was AI generated, right? So,
Wow.
yeah. And so knowing just the format and these 40 applications in the same minute, right? They all look the same. No one was standing out, right? So I still think, use technology to drive efficiency and quality for your job search, but still use that human element and touch when actually applying and reaching out to prospective hiring managers and recruiters.
That's why I love your post on cover letters, because, and why I want to touch upon LinkedIn so much, because I do think that straight up auto apply on LinkedIn just may not be relevant anymore.
Yeah.
But I think what was happening, Camille, is people were also including cover letters in that process and feeling so defeated, versus your advice in that post about really telling your story and connecting to the company,
Yeah.
and why your skill set connects to the company, and being more intentional with that submission to the person versus just 60 potential AI cover letters that go together.
Absolutely. It's your opportunity to be more personable, right? To really showcase and demonstrate how your accomplishments correlate to what that organization is looking to accomplish. Right. And it's really important to articulate what it is that you're ideally looking for in your next move and why that organization is of interest to you, right? With very specific reasons. These are things that a resume can't as easily articulate.
Yeah. So as we close, for people who are watching, who are interested in, I'd say, more managerial or director level gigs, are there particular industries they should be looking at right now? Is it more heavier on the agency side versus the brand side? What recommendations do you have for where they should potentially hone in their search, even vertical, that you think would be relevant to their case or cause, rather?
So healthcare continues to boom. Certainly, a lot of organizations that are working with the government, they all seem to be doing quite well with lots of grants being dispersed. I would say also financial services, fintech. SaaS has been a little bit slower, but it's slowly coming back. And then certainly consulting firms, technology, digital transformation consulting firms. Agencies, advertising agencies, they've been a little slower, but now they're coming back. I think a lot of organizations put their marketing spend on either hold, or they pulled back on spend, not knowing where the economy was going. And now mid-year reviews have taken place and they're just not happy with their growth. So now a lot of organizations are investing back in marketing again, which is great to see. And is obviously that's benefiting the agencies as well. So there's continuing to follow the trades in your market. Crane Chicago, right? For example, in Chicago, and just following built in, they have various presence throughout the country, right? And they always have great postings, but really following the organizations that are either raising capital and or experiencing tremendous growth. The Inc. 5000 list, for example, is a great place to look. So hopefully that helps.
Well, this has been chock full of helpful tips. Camille,
Okay.
thank you so much, because I had so many questions that came through with ask her this, ask her that, and folks just frustrated. So the takeaway for me from this chat include the following. LinkedIn can be helpful to let you know what's out there. Don't rely on it. Try to go right to the person.
What?
Really hone in on your story, what makes you different and what you want out of that position, why you can contribute. And if you're at a current position right now, ask how you can be measured. Ask how your contribution on a daily, quarterly basis helps the company's bottom line. Always be learning. Technologist, that's a key word for me. And I love that that is something that is brewing within the recruitment world, of someone who knows how to use technology to move things forward. I think your advice on LinkedIn is very helpful. That's just kind of also 101 that people forget. Keywords, making sure that your function matches you could be looking for. And one last question I forgot to ask you was, in someone's position summary in LinkedIn, do recruiters prefer like a 1 or 2 sentence summary, or all those bullet points under a position when it comes to?
So there's the summary section, which should be more of a paragraph format. And then below your position, you could either have a little bit of a brief summary and then bullets, but I certainly focus on measurable results, right? Which are typically figures. And we like to say, percentages are all relevant. So the more specific you can be about the actual results of your work that are in an analytical format, right, the better. And
there you go.
Include any awards that you've received.
All right. Well, Camille, thank you. And to those for watching now or later, thank you for sending me all those questions. I appreciate it. And with that, this concludes this episode of Being in the Middle with the amazing Camille Fetter from Talentfoot.
Thank you.
So thank you.
This is great. Thank you, Lisa.
See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Subscribe and say hi.